Okay, for us to be able to understand the eating of blood by humans, we need to look at this in the context of food. Of course, because it's got to do with eating. As we have it today in so many cultures around the world, the eating of meat still containing the blood in it is prominent. Some cultures eat it as sushi, and in some cultures it's even more gruesome in that the blood itself from animals are eaten. We've heard of the cases of some parents eating the placenta from the womb of a woman for nutritional purposes. But the fact remains that this placenta comprises of blood. It is through this placenta in the womb of the woman that a baby or babies in the womb can access oxygen from their mother via the umbilical cord. So what is it about the eating of blood by humans? As we discussed in my previous video, that blood is representative of life and death, because the human or the animal without blood cannot sustain life. It is with the blood that the human and the animals are able to live. So blood is representative of life. So if blood is representative of life, why are humans eating it? Because that signifies that eating blood, as gruesome as it sounds, is the same thing as eating lives or eating a life of a living creature. I found that in some cultures, the placenta alongside the umbilical cord is eaten. In some cases, I hear this is cooked and probably not. The second way of humans eating blood is by drinking it. You heard me right. In some cultures today around the world, humans drink fresh blood as part of their culture. One of the ones I found is the Maasai in Kenya drinking fresh blood. I don't believe that this is part of the original ancient African tradition pre-colonization. I believe strongly this must have been a culture that had infiltrated into the original culture. But that discussion is going to be for another day. And this is just an example, because it's not just the Maasais. This also exists in some other cultures around the world. I might put a list for you to see the other culture. Third, oaths. Oaths as in entrusting and confirming someone's allegiance to another. In some cultures, some group of people come together by piercing part of their body. It could be the part of the finger, which is the most popular, and it could be any part of the body. Could joining the pierced part of the body together with one another. It could be in a group or between two parties. So what they do is they bring the blood of each other together, swearing allegiance to one another in oaths. This usually happens in cults in some cultures around the world. So all these 3 points are confirmation of how blood, either human or animal blood, is used either for the purpose of drinking, eating, or in oaths. And all this is representative of life and death, as we've already come to understand that life and death is in the blood. But in all this, there are great disadvantages in these practices. Some of the disadvantages are hygiene. Hygiene in the sense that although blood is representative of life and death, it might also contain diseases unknown to people. For example, diseases like HIV, AIDS, anemia, leukemia, lymphoma, and so many other blood-related diseases. Second, even some scientists suggest that cancer in some cases might be blood-related. In many cases, we find that questions are asked by doctors if anyone in the family had previously experienced cancer. So that also could be in the line of blood diseases. Third, diabolic. One can also call the eating of blood as being diabolical. Diabolical in the sense that since blood is believed to be representative of life and death of a living creature, eating or drinking of blood can be considered as being diabolical because it's more or so like eating and drinking of another human being or living creature because of the presence of blood in it. And the fourth disadvantage is that it could also be considered as being inhumane. I mean, as a human, to eat or drink the lifeline of another human being or living creature just takes out the humanity in us. So this can be seen or considered as being inhumane to other living creatures. And I believe this is the reason why we have all that is going on in the world right now, where there's so much sufferings. Humans are eradicating other human beings for different reasons. Humans are eradicating animals for selfish reasons most of the time. It just disrupts the essence of our spirituality. It destroys our humanity because the level of love or compassion that we are supposed to have for one another as humans is disrupted, therefore causing a lot of suffering amongst humans and in the world generally. A human being can end another human being's life without even feeling a pinch of what he or she has done to another human being. It takes the soul that makes us to be humans completely out of us. I don't think the importance of blood or what it represents in us as living creatures really resonates with us as humans because of how this tradition of being comfortable, eradicating other human beings, animals, or living creatures has come to sit comfortably with humanity in general. This might be one of the reasons why there's so much sufferings amongst us on this earth, because it might be that it's not the original way of life from the beginning, which is part of what I've come to find out in the African spirituality, presently infiltrated anyways, as what is being practiced right now is not the original ancient African spirituality, especially since colonization happened. That disrupted completely and entirely the African spirituality. And right now, what is happening in Africa or in the African spirituality is that as a people of lost tribes, as a people of lost original cultures, we are finding ourselves or trying to find ourselves all over again, because the eating of blood, the eating of meat with blood still in it, it's not the original African spirituality. It's been infiltrated. And so Africa needs to go back in search of its original culture, how it used to be pre-colonization as opposed to what we have today. It was after this original African spirituality was disrupted that the eating of meat became the normative. Pre-colonization, it was all about plants and vegetation, but had to adapt anyways to accepting the eating of meat. The only way that was acceptable for the eating of meat was that the meat be cooked. Why is meat cooked today? Which I personally have currently found out. I didn't know this before. I only knew from my own Christian religion that when you want to eat meat, you have to cook it. But going through the African spirituality, I've come to find out the true reason why meat has to be cooked before it is eaten. And the purpose for this is that the cooking of meat is the ideal way of completely extracting blood from that meat to make it ideal for eating. So if that meat is not cooked, of course there's still blood in it, and it will be the same thing as eating a living creature, which is opposed to nature. Nature is not in line with the eating of blood, as it is representative of life and death. So it is in my search, understanding the African spirituality, that I came about this answer as to why we are allowed to eat meat, especially as it contains blood, which is by cooking it. In some cultures, meat are not cooked. You find that some of this meat are dried up in order to extract the blood from it completely. Some are smoked, like you have smoked bacon, smoked beef, etc. Prior permitting the eating of meat, in the ancient African culture, the eating of plant was what was practiced. As people were eating meat or flesh with its blood, this was one of the correcting measures that was put in place. And I'm sure this was not just affecting the animals in this world, it also affected humans as well, as we have heard of some human cannibals in some cultures. So I found that in the ancient African culture, animals were allowed to be cooked and as well used as a form of sacrifice to deities, which is a form of gift to the deity, to appease the gods, because humans came to the realization that eradicating these animals was against the law of nature, and the only way to compensate this practice was to cook it before eating it, and at the same time give part of it as gifts to the gods. But does this really solve the problem? As we can see around the world, there's a lot of capitalization going on. There are more animals being eradicated. People are being eradicated by other people for different reasons. Sometimes it's for capital gains. And this practice is causing humans a lot of suffering. But because of lack of understanding of these practices, especially in comparison with the ancient times, we all seem to blame it on the Creator. But in real fact, humans are the ones going against nature. I believe we can do better. Thank you for watching.